Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about listening to God. Last week we talked about the foundations of recognizing God's voice, which is all about relationship, but today we're going to be talking about listening for his voice. I want to begin with a little story that is based in a supermarket of all things. It's where I made a mistake. I've made many mistakes, this is just one of them. So basically, on this particular day, I went at the wrong time on the wrong day. And it was wrong because as soon as I entered in, it was like a tornado was happening. People were coming up and down, left and right, crashing into one another, just so focused on their lists and their agenda. They wanted to get in, they wanted to get out, they wanted you out of their way so that they could go and get everything they needed to as fast as they can. I mean, honestly, it was complete mayhem and total chaos. And at one particular time, I realised I have lost my entire family. So my husband, my 2 children, they've completely gone. I have no idea where they are. And so I looked up and down the aisles, I looked left and right, and honestly, I couldn't find them anywhere. And so what I ended up doing was I just stopped. And I actually stopped in the middle of the aisle, and I just stopped and closed my eyes, and I just waited. And I was waiting in a listening kind of way. I was listening for the voice of my family. So as I was just trying to filter out the sound of all of the crazy hubbub going on around me, all of the chatter, I was just trying to focus on the sound of the people I knew, my family, those I had a relationship with. And then very, very faintly in the distance, I could hear the quiet voice of my youngest son. So I just focused on his voice. I determined where it was coming from, and then I followed that voice. And eventually that quiet whisper became stronger and clearer, and I found him. And he was negotiating with my husband about whether or not they could buy donuts, which is not a surprise. But I just wanted to share that story with you because I think it holds a few tips on how we can listen to God's voice. So the first thing is just stopping. We have really busy, crazy lives sometimes, don't we? Supermarket lives where there's just lots going on all the time, and our schedules are just sometimes back to back, and we just need to take time out of them in our everyday to just stop and to wait. And I think that waiting is also really important because we live in an instant world, don't we, where we just click our fingers and we expect Amazon deliveries and we expect just instant on demand almost nearly everything. You know, we can get everything almost instantly. So waiting is actually really important. We're not clicking our fingers to God and being like, I expect you to speak now. This is your little moment. I want you to have this 5 minutes where you're going to speak to me. That's not how you treat a friend. You know, God is not a business partner where you give an appointment. She's like, okay, for 5 minutes, that's when you have an appointment with me, and so you're going to speak now. No, he's a friend. He wants to go and have contact with us, be able to speak whenever he wants, however he wants. So we're waiting for God's voice. We're waiting, we're saying you are worthy of us waiting. And then we're listening to hear. So you can just listen and you can just hear, but we're listening to hear, to recognize a voice of someone that is familiar to us. I like this example with the supermarket because I'm listening for my son's voice. I have a relationship with my son, and so his voice stands out amongst all of the other supermarket voices. His voice is the one I have relationship with, and that's the same with God. We can have all of these internal and external noises going on, but his voice, there's something familiar about it. There's something loving. There's something that connects with our spirit, a bit like a jigsaw puzzle connecting, that we just know this is a voice of someone that has a connection with me. It's difficult to describe, but as you do it over time, you'll become more and more familiar with his voice. So we're stopping, we're waiting, we're listening, we're trying to recognize the voice amongst all of the others And so trying to filter out that distraction. And then when we hear what is often a whisper, then we're trying to focus on that whisper and drawing near to it. I think God often speaks to us in a whisper because he wants that intimacy. When we speak in a quiet voice, it means you have to come close, don't you? And in 1 Kings 19, we hear about, Elijah and God speaking to him, and it wasn't in the loud wind, it wasn't in the fire, it wasn't in the earthquake, it was in a soft whisper. And God often speaks in a quiet voice because he wants us to draw near to him. James 4:8 says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. So we're listening for that familiar, loving voice, which will be easier to recognize over time. We're drawing near to it. And then, just as with my son, eventually we find that we're closer and that we're like, yes, I can hear you, God. So that's just a few little tips of how we can learn to just listen a bit better. I'm going to tell you another story, just sort of hopefully will encourage you a little bit. We have just, in the UK, come out of a time of quite serious coronavirus lockdown, where we were allowed to have 1 period of outdoor exercise per day. And that was very precious to us. We wanted to get outside. We live near countryside, and so we would go and walk along the river. And what we would do each time we went is we were doing little hunts. We were searching for things. So we would go for a visual hunt where we were looking for particular shapes. So like a triangle shape or a lightning bolt shape or something like that. We were looking for colour hunts, so particular colours like red. And we were also doing sound hunts, so searching for a particular noise. So we have lots of bird song around us, and one of the things we did was we were looking for, or listening for the sound of a cuckoo, which is very distinct, isn't it? And what we realised with all of these little hunts was how many things we had ignored and we'd looked but not seen, we listened but not heard before. Because when we started to look for red things, for example, we started to notice red everywhere that we had never noticed before but had been there all along. And when we were listening for the cuckoo, we realised, oh my goodness, the cuckoo noise is so loud and it's everywhere, but we hadn't recognised that voice amongst the birdsong before because we hadn't given our attention and focused on it before. And I wanted to share this with you because I really believe that you have been already hearing God's voice, but it's a matter of giving it our attention as we stop, wait, listen, focus on it, sort out all of the distraction and minimise that and draw near. That it's only when we do all of these things that we realise, this voice, this quiet voice is something I have been hearing all along, but actually often the world around me is being so loud that it's drowned it out a bit. And so it's very easy to ignore God's voice. It's very easy to dismiss God's voice because God doesn't want to shout. And the world around us does. So we need to try and live in a lifestyle, a way of ongoing awareness of the fact that we want to give God's voice our attention, and to carry on doing this wherever we can throughout the day by stopping and waiting and listening and doing all of that, as I previously described. So I just want to encourage you that you are probably almost definitely hearing God's voice already. We just need to grow in recognizing it and focusing on that voice. And then I'm sure you'll realize that actually he's speaking to you a lot more than you think. So next time what we're going to be talking about is actually, what does that voice look like? What does it sound like? Because I've said that it's often as a whisper, but that whisper can take many different forms. And I will talk about that more next time. So I look forward to seeing you then.